Welcome to Leaders of Today. We are so lucky to have Robert Lewis Jr. with us as our guest. Robert grew up in East Boston Maverick Housing Project, where he and his family were the first Black residents in the neighborhood. As a teen, he was an athlete, a strong student, and a proud member of the Salesian Boys Club. But his world changed the night a friend threw a firebomb at his home during Boston's busing crisis. Instead of letting that act of hate define him, Robert turned pain into purpose, making a promise at 16 to spend his life bringing people together. Today, as the Nicholas president and CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, Robert leads with that same conviction, building unity, opportunity, and hope for nearly 40,000 youth and families each year. His leadership transforms divisions into connection and inspires a generation to rise above their circumstances and lead Boston's future. You're listening to Today's Leaders, From Teens to Titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. Welcome, Robert. I am so grateful to have you on my podcast today.
Great. Thank you so much. And really looking forward to this discussion and just excited about being here. And thank you also for your work and your leadership in bringing voice to our young people as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I love this question and I ask this of all my guests. Tell me what it was like as a teenager for Robert and how that journey from being a teenager led you to this incredible position as a leader today, inspiring more youth.
Wow, that's a fascinating one. The great thing about growing up as a kid, nobody called me Robert. I was Junior. So as a teen, even now, my friends and when I'm in communities, everybody knows me as Junior. In a weird way, Robert is my professional name. So I'm very proud to be Junior. I like to tell folks, as a kid growing up, I was a public kid. I lived in public housing, went to public schools, took public transportation to get to schools, attended public hospitals, and I was a public assistance kid. I was a welfare kid. So the publics, in a weird way, helped to raise me. And I was, a kid in public housing who was active, was an athlete, had a single mom that worked and wanted us just to be really good young folks. And as we were going to grow up to be great citizens. So I was just a very active young person, involved in sports, involved in other activities in the neighborhood. But I never thought as a kid that I was poor, growing up in public housing or anything of that nature, because I just felt like I had friends. I could walk to and from school, and there was always a big group of us from the housing developments. So a lot of this socialization, being engaged, I think all led me to wanting to do things that always had to do with people and community. And then in May of 1976 is when the world changed, when at that time my best friend firebombed my home. And during that time, there were a bunch of other Black families in Maverick that got, firebombed as well. I made a decision at that time that for the rest of my life, I wanted to be about doing something positive. I remember as a kid, there wasn't a lot of outrage when that happened. They were surprised, but there wasn't as much outrage. And so to me, it was about, as my late mom says, it's not about hate. It's about love. And how are we going to bring folks together? So at a very young age, When I moved, I decided to take public transportation to school. I was greeting the school buses that were arriving in East Boston High. And you don't know as a young kid, they're called leadership skills or any of that. Didn't know that. It was just about doing the right thing. And then in school, I started a Roots Club. I started a few other things. I started really talking to more young folks across the city because busing and at that time desegregation played a big role in the city. And I've been blessed. I think, my career has been working with great organizations, either starting programs or being part of significant programs that had always an impact on young folks and an impact on families and an impact on communities. So I love that. I still live in the city and I would never leave this city that helped to raise me. But so much of my teenhood has brought me to what I've done. And at that time, sports taught me so much around values and so many other things around learnings as well that I still apply in my life today.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I want to talk about. But the thing that really has been sort of resonating for me a lot, especially in our current political climate, is that you're talking about a mere 49 years ago. And that just feels like so long in one sense, but so short in another sense. And so it's like the juxtaposition of you having that experience and also seeing where we are today. I guess my biggest question is, you said you didn't feel poor, right? And so I guess my question is what do you think defines being poor, or what do you think people feel who consider themselves poor? I just think it's so beautiful how you identified that I was in all of these spaces, but I never felt poor.
Yeah, I sometimes say as I've gotten older, poor is a state of mind, right? Do we know there's poverty? Absolutely. But for me, growing up in public housing, in the projects, that was housing. That was family. That was community. Now, remember, I would go to school and there's 40, 50 other kids. When I would jump on a bike, there's 20 kids on a bike. You go to basketball court, there was 30, 40 kids. We didn't have a car. But when my uncle would pick us up and he would drive us to the beach, this is interesting and this is real. We would drive by a house and you see a kid on a bike by himself in the parking lot. And I used to always say that poor kid because I had something that he didn't have. I had friends, I had community, I had family. And it's until I went to college that I realized there was a difference of what I didn't have in terms of money versus a lot of kids at college had. Because I would ask a friend of mine, and at that time, I was like, why are my friends going out at night all the time? Why are they going out to hang out at bars? Where do they get that money? Right? That was a difference of not having and then having. And what I think for me, what we have done, and it's part of the change of what we're doing at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. I think we've created these systems or theories that if you live in urban environments, we look at you from a deficit. And what we do at the Boys and Girls Club, it's all asset language, belief. We don't talk about our young folks as clients. What they are is that they're assets, their talent, right? So how are we investing in a level of talent? Or we are Boston's future talent pipeline, because that's true. And it doesn't matter about your zip code, your socioeconomic class. It doesn't matter if you've attended public schools. It doesn't matter if you have dreads, a beard, or all those things that we have used as divisiveness, or that you're a black or a brown young man. Someone has used that stuff as divisiveness, or in theory, if you're looking at fundraising or grants, they say, tell me about the most at-risk kids you've worked with. Why did we determine kids at risk versus how about if we talk about, tell me about the young people you work with, and let's stop defining them in a negative term instead of looking at them as an asset and as a resource. So I was blessed again that sports and all of these things provided me with an opportunity to show my talent, because I had talent, to show my smarts and show my abilities and not allow anyone to define that by a single mother, female head of household. My mother was third grade educated. My father was fourth grade educated. But what did that mean when you had loving parents that are saying, you got to read, you got to do your homework, you got to be good? And they had dreams and ambitions for me. And that's the same dreams and ambitions we have for our young folks. So when you look at our young folks, and I really mean you look at them, if you really believe in them, and I really mean this, you believe in them and you love them, then what you're going to do is have these expectations. I don't call it discipline. I don't discipline kids. I love kids. Mm-hmm. And when you love them that hard, you can't set a bar of expectations. They can meet them. Who the heck said that for me when I was a public kid? All I remember people saying, hey, we hope you'll consider college. We hope you'll get a job. Why were you hoping versus investing in my abilities? Do more. So it is about investing in talent. It is about it, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, providing them with the tools, the resources, the mentorship, and the staff that we can see their future. And we want them to dream, but not just dream, to provide access to what those dreams can be. So I keep saying, in a weird way, East Boston helped to mature a boy, and then everyone else helped to build a man. And all I could see in front of us is success, access, and opportunity. And again, I don't want to lose this word that some people might say is soft, but this idea of don't be afraid to love our young people, love their families, and love our communities. Because I actually feel very strongly that love, belief, and hope is what's going to keep driving us forward.
A couple of times I've written the word connection, and the opposites that I have, or the verses that I have against connection, is hate versus connection, money and material versus connection. And so it just keeps coming back to me that feeling of not being poor was because of those connections and those communities. And what you're saying and what you're facilitating and doing with the Boys and Girls Club is creating a community of connections. And if you can have connections, then you're not going to feel that poor. You're not going to feel that hate. You're not going to feel that loneliness that I think so many of our youth are feeling right now. They're feeling isolated. They're feeling lonely. And we as the adults in the world are like, wow, it's the phone. It's the this. And we have all these excuses. You're putting it into action. And
Lorraine, it's not the young people. The young people aren't the problem. It's how are we shifting the mindset of adults, right? Our young folks are brilliant. They're smart. They're resilient. Think of this, and especially, I believe, a lot of our young folks in our city of Boston and Chelsea. In a world of uncertainty, they wake up every single day and they make it through. In a world of uncertainty. So it is that grit. It is that resiliency that we have to see. And that's why I said earlier, you have to believe in them. So to me, invest in their abilities to move forward and stop spending all the time thinking you got to fix them.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Fixing.
Oh, the fix it attitude. Yes. I've been talking a lot about this relationship that for so long, we as adults have been the knowers, the experts. And now with like the internet, we're not. And the kids are. And I think there's a lot of adults who are having a really hard time shifting our role to be partner, to be collaborator. And that's part of what's pulling us away from, and you said, fixing the problem.
And the other thing too is if we can do one thing too, is let's not be afraid to listen. We had an event last week. I'm meeting up with all of our juniors and seniors throughout all of our clubs. So our staff, we presented and we were sharing all we're doing around academic workforce. It was great. So I had to close it. So the first thing I asked the group was, what was it that you didn't hear? Or what is it that you think we need to do in addition to what you've heard? And it was great because, our staff have been working with young folks and it's great. But it was so exciting to hear the young folks. Like, Robert, have we thought about arts or have we thought about design? Have we thought about culinary? And what that moment really was for us just to hear from them. And when they're sharing it with excitement. Mm-hmm. And with opportunities, right? So you're right. All of these things is let's not be afraid to pause and not to be afraid to say, hey, our generation, we didn't have the technology. We had to learn. This generation has the technology. And they know this. Our generation, we weren't thinking about like the life sciences or the AI. This generation is right now. So again, if we really want to start thinking about who is the talent pipeline for the future, it's our young people today. Their learning, their talent, and their ability are going to be the ones in the future for us. And it's not that thing like they're the future. Folks, they're the future. That's why it's the investment in today.
Yeah.
The investment in today is going to set us up. And here's the other thing. Our young folks have had to deal with COVID, had to deal with the George Floyd reckoning, all of those things. And one of the great things that we've seen during the COVID, George Floyd, some of the racial reckoning, when you looked at the young folks, they came from every walk of life and came together and rallied. History is going to show in 2020, 21, 22, 23, when our country was going through the COVID racial reckoning, it was young folks from all walks of life that came together, not the adults. It was the young people, and they were standing and they were mobilizing. So again, build on that. Let's not take that away. Let's keep building on that as we continue to lead forward.
Yes, I love that. I mean, it very much aligns with the mission of my work that, you know, empowering kids. I always think of the classroom, right? So the classroom, we typically think of that teacher and the kids sitting in the desks, right? Well, the teacher can only do so much because they are only one person. If they see the assets, I call them resources, sitting in front of them, then now they have combined all of that knowledge to be an incredible learning tool. And so I see finding the ways to empower them and build their voices so that everyone has a chance to learn from each other.
And the great thing that we are and we could do, and I look at this for all of our staff in our clubs, they're incredible mentors. They're incredible coaches. And they're trusted advisors. So sometimes what we try to do is maybe specialize them, but like we have to look, they are specialized in mentoring, in coaching, and being on the front lines. And as I like to say, our folks look at the young folks straight in the eye and look at them and tell them, we got your back. Like we got you. And that's what's special and unique around the work and in this field, in this industry. And I remind folks in this sector of work we do, like, yeah, they might call us a nonprofit, but we're a profit-making entity. We're developing talent. We're developing a pipeline. We're developing incredible civic citizens for today and the future. So if anything, we're adding so much of a profitability, like, you know, to our economy with what we're doing with young folks. So I say sometimes the greatest and easiest investment in a weird way if we get out of our way.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're a testament to that story, right? People invested in you. The boys club that you were a part of invested in you, and you saw the power of connection and community. And now you're turning that around and investing in the future, right? And that's what so often people struggle with. But right now we have this problem. Yes, we do. But we're going to have bigger problems later if we don't think futuristic. And I think so often when it comes to teenagers, we don't see their capacity for what it can be. And when we get out of the way and let them try, and so often my problem when I'm working with teenagers is that they're so afraid of making a mistake. They're so afraid of what they have been identified as failure that they don't even want to step out of their comfort zone. And so it's about creating the psychological safety. It's about creating the culture, the community to allow them to test and run. And that is what is available through your programming.
Right. And that is what you're talking about. It's this mindset shift and culture shifting. And like I said last week when I was young folks, I asked all the folks that are doing well in school on the road, stand up, and they didn't, and I made them all stand up and told them, you have to define your narrative. My colleagues will tell you, if you walk in the clubs, every young person I see, I'll say, how you doing today? And they'll say, I'm doing good. No, you're doing great and you're exceptional every day. You define your narrative, because if you don't define your narrative, it gets defined for you. So part of it is we're narrative building. Part of the culture is, again, you know this, how do we talk to our young folks? Again, do we see them and do we believe in them? Do we believe in them? Do we see them as assets? How do we engage them in the conversation and to listen? And when I got here 3.5 years ago, we started a teens group, and I love it. And they didn't like the name teens group, so they created the names TTA, the Teens Taking Action. So I meet with them like monthly. We have this group that's up. And what I decided to do is, if I was meeting with a consultant about teens, you pay them. So we pay our teens each month. They come up with ideas and thoughts, and we pay them a stipend a month because their voices matter. And if we're serious about it, then let's do something about it. So, and again, I feel like so much of that is because I had coaches and mentors. I had the boys club. I had East Boston Social Centers where I got my job, and I went away to camp. And it was until I got older is when I realized there was this whole idea of philanthropy where people are funding organizations that are investing in our young people. So listen, I feel like, again, what I love about this is I'm that kid from the block, and I'll never lose that. I'm that kid from the block that did the learning and studying and watching what others did to say, how do we apply this in a different way so we don't have to repeat history? We build off history, but we start creating, as you said, our future. I love that you said being futuristic. I talk about it all the time. You have to live today while you're living 5 to 7 years from now. So you got to live in both of those worlds, because guess what? The future's out there already talking about AI, robotics, all these things. Our kids don't know yet the jobs that will be there in the next 5 to 10 years. But what we have to do is equip them with skills and learning and understanding so they're ready.
Yeah. And much of the work that I have taken on is the fact that we are not providing those skills to all teenagers, right? We're picking and choosing based on a certain skill set that they have today, or a certain academic success or rule following. And so one of the things that happened to me was that I saw this gap. And I also saw students reflecting to me my own story. And I was like, there has got to be a better way to get access to this type of skills to all students, and not just the top rule following, academic successing students and teens. So I think it's really powerful when you look at every kid in your program and see the same value in every single one of them.
You know what, Lorraine, that's a very interesting one, right? So when I think of, my daughter's 40, my son's 36, and I think of my grandkids, isn't it interesting? I think of when my kids were born, right? So you're there in the hospital when they're born. And in that moment, I've already have seen what I want to do with them when they're 9, 10, 15, 20, 21. It's wild within that first hour how you go from them being born to their career. But isn't it funny that we think this way, but then when we get into the work, we think day to day versus thinking futuristically, thinking like everyone thinks their young person is going to be here. And know what I believe? Exactly. Now let's build that roadmap. It's funny. I can pull out my phone and I can GPS any place and I can get there. So how about if we GPS the success of our young folks? When they say where they want to go, let's GPS them, get folks like you, Lorraine, and others that have life experience and stories to help guide and lead them. Because we also need to let them know, it's going to be some ups and downs and rides with that. And this thing about, which is crazy, people talk about failure. What an incredible experience. I remind folks, your resume says what you've done. It didn't say you're good at it. It doesn't say you're good at it. And if you're good at something, I will bet it's a bunch of failures in life experiences that you have had. So again, I say I'm a coach and I do sports. It is the most interesting thing. That's why you practice. That's why you do this. And then guess what? And you do it over and over and over, right? This is what we have to do in life, right? So the kid who may get a 60 on the test and then like a 75 or 80 or 90, let's talk about that young person progressing versus saying that 60 in September holds them back versus assessing and evaluating they're growing. But
you have just hit the heart of my story. I mean, I struggled so much as a teacher when I had to give a final assessment and I had to hold a kid back because of the way the system was set up. And so I'm trying to challenge teachers today to not to rank kids, because that's what grading really is a way to rank kids. And if we step back and recognize that it's not about ranking, it's about achievement of each individual student, then all of a sudden that challenge of grading becomes a partnership.
Yes. When I look in my life and you think of the busing or other things that have happened, and in 2020, I caught COVID on my birthday and I was actually intubated for 13 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was fighting for my life for 13 days. And then I was in a rehab for another few weeks. So over a month, I was in the hospital. I was in a coma, so I don't know what those 13 days were like. But knowing that when I was in rehab, there was a reason why I survived at a time when that was early, when they were saying 75, 80% of people that were like ventilated weren't making it. And I believe this. I believe it's because there's still so much work that I needed to get done. And you just said this too. It's about shifting systems. It's about how are we assessing and evaluating how we want to move young folks. Listen, I was a good student, and I had dinner a few weeks ago with a couple of my former classmates, and we were laughing, and we were like B students, and we were like all laughing and saying, look at our B students, and no knock on our valedictorian, salutatorian, all of those. I says, it's funny. We were all very active in school. And it's a very interesting one of where my career has gone. A few of them were city councilors, state reps, like running a company or a business. And we were all saying, isn't it interesting how we were all active in school on clubs and other things? And it wasn't just purely the academics. The academics were important, don't get me, but the idea that we didn't realize at a very young age, the socialization, the clubs, and all of those other things were going to be experiences that we were going to be able to take into our lives as we were moving forward. So I say it as a blessing. As much as busing had an impact in my family's life when we moved, it was one of the greatest opportunities I had in my weirdest way to step up, to be more involved, to lead, like shifting a mindset that I had at a young age, and didn't realize all of those things were going to apply to the career trajectory that I've taken. So I look back and say, bad experience. But what it did for me, it allowed me to use that as a motivating factor to move forward and to turn around and say, I'm a kid from East Boston, the Maverick Street housing projects, single mom, 6 kids, went to a public school, like use nonprofit organizations. And today, to be that kid that others used to mark, wouldn't be, couldn't be, and all of the deficits. And now I am leading the largest youth-serving organization, not just in Boston or the Commonwealth, but throughout New England. So not about me, but about mentors, coaches, and believers who invested in me to be the person I am today. So what I do, yeah, you can call me president, CEO, but a big part of this is that I get to pay it forward. And that's the work we're doing, is paying it forward for generations to come.
You must have been reading my mind, because I was about to ask you that question, because so often many of us are faced with an experience. And for you, it was firebombing. For me, it was a boss who really humiliated me in front of a lot of people. And there's 2 directions that you can go with that. And I spent some time in the other direction of being a victim. But what do you think it was that allowed you to take that terrible, terrible experience and turn it as a positive outcome. I mean, I think what was in your life at 16 that allowed you to not see this, I'm a victim, but I will use this for good?
Mentors, coaches. The other interesting thing, I think some of the older folks in my high school who I looked up to and wanted to be like a mom who just had unconditional love. And I'll never forget, my mom did say this, and this was something, and she says, after this happened, and there were other families, and my mom was from the deep South, and I'll never forget this day, she said, boy, let me tell you something. You win with your brains, and when you win with your heart. You do something stupid and you end up in trouble or in prison, you can't do nothing for anybody else. So she says, we win because we outsmart everybody and we do this. And then, boy, you're going to grow up and you're going to be someone special and you're going to do something. And like at 16, 17, you're rolling your eyes. Ma, because honestly, that happens. You want to go back and retaliate.
Yeah.
Honestly, you had a mom and you had coaches and mentors and friends that seen something that you didn't see. Mm-hmm. And I can say this, I have been blessed by having some of the greatest coaches and mentors. And I'm 65 and I still have mentors in my life from when I was young as a teen, like while I was in college, and others that are still in my life today. So it is a blessing. And I'll tell you the honest goodness truth, I thank them whenever I see them because none of us stand alone. Yeah, I have a title. I get this. You can get an award. You can be honored, all that stuff. But like when you get all those things, you got a list of 25 people that you want to look at and say, I am because of them. And I don't forget that. And I say this with the utmost love and respect. I was blessed when you were a kid and you're thinking about a single mom, third grade educated. And I think one of the greatest community activists and leaders that I know who literally loved their kids and expected of us, even during our trials and tribulations. So that was it. It's still mentors, support, people who are like, if you're going left, they steered you right. If you're going left again, they steered you right. And people who never gave up on me.
So then my question is, what about that kid who resonates with that experience of like going left or right? What advice do you have for them? Maybe they don't have those mentors, coaches, and advisors in their life right now. What advice do you have to help them navigate that juxtaposition of going left or right?
One of the things, and we were talking about this earlier, every time I'm in front of a person, or with young people, I'm always going to build on their positive. Like I am. I'm just going to build on who they are. Like use your address or zip code to be resilient, right? Like who are people out there that they either love or they look up to? I think part of it is, and we were saying this earlier, there needs to be a narrative shift that our young folks are hearing more about possibilities and opportunities. Our young folks, because right now, all they hear is what they're not. All they hear is what's wrong with them. All they hear is about the schools they attend. So we almost have to shift and have a positive narrative. And it's what I try to do in my life, period. But it's always letting our young folks know, what did I do? I use sports. So if you have sports, if you have arts, culture, music, this, the ability of putting the time and the energy and the talent in and reminding folks of so many people that came from their neighborhood or folks in our communities that are doing well. And on a very personal note, I spend my time around a lot of folks in this neighborhood that have done good, that have come up with from the same background. And what's cool is to make sure our young folks to know their name, or if there's opportunities for our young folks to meet them. That is why our staff are so important to our young folks. And here's this crazy thing. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of gang work. Do you know why more young people in America join gangs? Because the gangs give them a place of belonging, a place to feel you're part of something. So instead of being critical of the gangs, learn from them. We have to create environments of belonging. Our schools, our boys and girls clubs, our Ys have to be vehicles that are engaging folks, not vehicles that kids are waking up, man, I got to go to school today. Or, man, I have a teacher. I can't wait to be in that room. Or I can't wait for study or this, that, and the other. I was that kid. I'm going to be honest, Lorraine, I say as a teacher. I learned something in the 3rd and 4th grade. And literally, I'll be honest, loved my teacher. Her name was Miss Winter. And in the 4th grade, Mr. Palumbo. But I realized we had a class of 25, 26, 27. So I loved them. But then it used to be, how do I get more time with them? So they used to say, hey, if you talk in class, you're going to stay after school. So you know what I would do? I'd talk. And you know what they would say? You have to stay after school. And you know what I got after school? More time with Miss Winter and Mr. Palumbo. And Mr. Palumbo became, like at the time when they had the neighborhood schools, he was also a baseball coach and all those things. And I really mean this. And it was maybe about 15 years ago. I was speaking somewhere and I had Miss Winter come and join me. And I acknowledged her, my 3rd grade teacher. And we were telling the story. And she says, you were always staying after school. I said, Miss Winter, because I would always get extra time with you. The power, Lorraine, of you, the power as a teacher, and what you have done is you have taken this opportunity to now do more and have an impact on more teams, have an impact on more folks that are working with our communities. So you've taken your love and passion and you become a vessel to inform and educate folks. And that's what we need. Are folks like you that are continuing to help tell the great story, but telling your story as well as I get the chance to share mine.
Yes. Thank you for acknowledging. And yes, it really is. It's the power of the story. I'm going to bring it right back to what your mom said to you. I win with my heart. I win with my brains. I just have to be smarter than the system and provide the opportunities to more kids so that they can win with their heart and win with their brains. I love that message.
Yes. Hey, this is what you get excited to get up every morning to do. But think of this. We're in a moment right now. When have we ever been called to stand up for something greater than ourselves? Young people. So I say this to you and I'll say it to others. People who talk about my job. This is a calling.
It is a calling.
It's a calling. And that I'm privileged that I can wake up every day. And what I love is, like my background, you see photos, it's kids. There's no awards. There's no accolades, not that. Remind ourselves to stay centered in what's really important every day in our work. And we're called to act, we're called to lead, and we're called to listen. What a moment that we're in.
What a moment. And I am so excited to be part of this moment, right? Like I could have sat back and stayed as a teacher, but I chose to do a risk, and most of that came because I was sitting and thinking to myself, I challenge my students every single day when I was in the classroom. I challenged them. So what's the last time I challenged myself? That's what opened the door to me. And so now every day, becoming a small business owner, that is a lot of challenge. And now every day I feel challenged.
Yes, you know what I'm thinking, Lorraine? We should get one of your students to do a podcast on you because I really know I'm being real. Think of the influence of one teacher and really think of how that mobilizes, right? And expands. I'll guarantee you there's folks out there that are in the teaching or even the sector we're in that don't feel like they can do something or they can step out. And that's important for me is like, it's not even about taking a risk. It's about the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And which I dearly and I really deeply appreciate you for is you're right. You could have sat back and you could have been what I call a fan, sitting in the stands and complaining. Or you can jump and play the game. You jump in. You're in the game.
It was scary, scary, scary. I mean, that was the thrilling part, right? I spent 15 years, 10 years is teaching. And it was fun every year. I had a new group of students, but I never felt that invigorating challenge of trying something new. And I knew the end had to come and the end, what did it look like? And so it's that place where, and it comes back to the calling, where your gift is what the world needs. And when those two things come together, that is the calling. And I love that both of us here feel that the work that we're doing is our calling. Robert, how do people connect with you? What are you looking for in terms of support or connections? as people are listening to this podcast, what's your call to action?
My call to action is, and I'm going to have a couple of simple things in terms of even supporting Boys and Girls Club, but I'm going to just really tell everybody, know your neighbors. Say hello to folks, right? We can send someone to the moon and back, but we have a hard time saying hello to our neighbors, right? Get involved in your own community and civic life, right? Because it really, really matters. And if you're looking to be engaged, right? And I say this, engage, not volunteering or from a savior mentality, but deeply engaged. Like seek out your local Boys and Girls Club, your youth serving organization, your schools or your churches, whatever. But you have something to give. Use your talent, use your wit, use your financial resources if you have that to invest. And really, I want to say, don't just feel like you're funding or sponsoring. Invest in our future. And then the other thing too is how to use your intellectual capital as well as helping to move things forward. And then if you have the opportunity for an internship or a job or something, like use that as well. It's going to take the collective effort of all of us. If we're going to address some of the biggest challenges in the history of our country and our families and our young folks, this collective action of now into the future with all of us will get us there. So like, listen, if you're interested, check us out, boysandgirlsclub.org, and find out more about the great work that we're doing.
Awesome. And where are you? Are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's a great place to like connect with me, follow me, and once in a while you'll see I'm putting out little thoughts and stories about things that happen in our communities and things of that nature, and doing a little bit of what you're doing, Lorraine, too. Like we have a podcast that we run and really about really looking at greatness. We're looking at, like you said, I like this, from teens to titans. We're talking about folks from being this young person to your greatness of today. And that's what we want to do, is we want to celebrate what's great in our communities, what's great in our families, what's great in our young folks. No deficit language with us. No like looking back and thinking our folks are victims and they're the problems, right? No, it's all about solution driven.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world.
Lorraine, thank you, and really appreciate you reaching out, and Anna and Finn Partners for allowing this to happen. My love to you is keep leading on, Lorraine. Yes. Keep leading on.
Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.